you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, we get a lot of requests coming our way when it comes to those that also want to publish a story that they have to tell. There's a lot of people in corrections that definitely have some stories to tell, and you know they want to know the steps that we took. So what I did was, besides myself, I also have author William Young and author Gary York, and we're going to share a personal story with you. You know, what motivated us to write a book, the journeys we took when the book got published, and how we felt. More importantly, why we also wanted to write the book. So there's a couple areas we want to discuss. Hopefully this dialogue motivates you, because as the title says, if you have a story to tell, you know, let's see if you can get it published. Because again, there's a lot of good stories out there that our profession needs to hear, and they're disappearing because people with experience, they're leaving. This is your chance to kind of have a legacy, to kind of leave something behind that echoes on the tiers long after you have been retired. So I think this is going to be definitely a very fun and interesting dialogue, something I can learn from, and definitely I'm sure something our panel as well. So without further ado, let's bring in the panel. Hey Gary, what's up, man? How you been?
How you doing? I've been doing good. Thank you for having me on. I have your book and William Young book here. Of course, I finished reading yours. I'll be on his pretty soon. I have Connie Aileen's book. She's also an author. So I'm reading all of the books from all of you, and anybody that writes a book about corrections, I try to get their book, read it, and share it with other people. So thanks for having me on today.
Right, guys, if you don't know, Gary's a retired inspector out of Florida. He's also been a front line. He's worked in the courts. He's got a vast experience, but he's also an author of a few books out there. Two that I know of is Corruption Behind Bars, Inside the Inner Circle. He also has another book possibly coming out soon in the near future, also a kid's book. So, I mean, Gary just has become this prolific writer. So, bravo, Gary. Can't wait to read your next book that's up and coming. I'm very excited for you. And we also have author William Young, who also has 2 books on the market and who's currently still on the job as a frontline professional. What's up, Will?
How you doing, Anthony? Thanks for having me on and with Gary. Gary, it is so, I don't think people understand how surreal it is to have not only be in a video with the Anthony Gangi, but to have my book side by side with him is like a dream come true. And I'll talk about that a little bit as we go. I've talked about it on the show before too, but no, thanks for having us, man. I'm eager to discuss.
Yeah, I'm actually excited. Guys, I think there's going to be a fun dialogue. I think it's good because it gives us a chance to get personal, share some stories, and kind of give you the why behind what we do. And I think that sometimes gets lost when we are sharing tips or kind of discuss a lot about the how as opposed to the why. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tear Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what it takes to publish a book. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it. It's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, and we are back. So I thought we can kind of keep this journey consistent. So first off, we know at some point, obviously, we get some experience on the job, and maybe at some point we decide to kind of maybe journal or somehow remember what's going on. And then eventually, you know, maybe as you start to write it down, you're like, well, maybe this just isn't for me to know. Because I think the key is before you decide to embark on a book, you know, you need to have an idea of what you think is going to have value to others related to that audience. So I'll start with Gary first. When you decided to write your book, did you think of the audience first, or did you think of your book first?
No, I had to think of audience first. Number one, I was never going to write a book, but people would say, tell me a story about, you know, some of your investigations. And of course, these investigations were all closed, done with, and over. And I would tell stories and they would say, well, you need to write a book. And for years, people told me that. And I finally sat down and wrote it because of one thing: to educate and inform. I even put that at the beginning of my book. It's not to tell stories just to tell stories. I was hoping, and I still hope today, that when someone reads Corruption Behind Bars or Inside the Inner Circle, they look at it in a way of, this is something you don't do. This is an educational book, and I'm hoping that people see it, that I dedicated the book actually at the beginning to all the honest, hardworking officers who work every day in the trenches to protect the citizens and stand between the citizens and the criminals. And that's what we do. We protect everyone behind that wall, and we protect our communities, and we try to keep it safe for our communities. So the purpose of these short stories in each book is to let people know that you can let your guard down sometimes and get caught in a trap with these inmates. And it could cost you an administrative investigation, or it could cost you a criminal investigation in some cases. We don't want that to happen. I don't want people to be investigated because of allegations of a crime or something they've done wrong with an inmate. So I was hoping that everyone would get the idea across of, hey, this is something that can happen. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of officers that were investigated in my books that had 15, 20 years time, good people. And I'm sitting across the table from them with a tape recorder on, wondering to myself, how did you let this happen? Which falls into what? Inmate manipulation, okay? Because inmate manipulation was in every single investigation that I did. Now, some people just go in there with the mindset of, I'm going to make some extra money and I'm going to make cash under the table. That's criminal. I don't have any thoughts for them. I went to bed at night sleeping very well, knowing I investigated them and got rid of them. But many of the folks that were investigated administratively for inmate staff relationship, or even criminally in some cases for bringing the inmates a cigarette even, the inmate manipulation was a huge part of that. They fell into the trap. They fell for the inmate's trap, you know. And when you're reading these books, I just hope that you're looking at it not like, oh, why is he writing about bad things officers did? That's not why I wrote it. I wrote it to help everybody learn of the games inmates play. And if I had Gary Cornelius's book, I should have had it out here. I'd hold it up right now. He wrote the book, you know, The Art of a Con. That's what I'm trying to prove in my books. You can fall for the inmate manipulation. You can fall for the art of a con. And I wrote them to educate and inform. Believe me, nobody's getting rich off these books. I've got them out there for a very low price, just to try to help new officers and old officers learn what happens when you fall into these traps.
Yeah, I think for me, my motivation was, you know, even with the Tear Talk thing, was to really give people a better understanding of this profession. But then I realized that we ourselves don't see ourselves in the light that we should, just in regards to the important functions that we serve, but also key is how we work together. I mean, that's also a concern, just on a higher level. But I also, the reason why I became invested in inmate manipulation, at least, you know, that's what the book is about, is because a lot of people feel that it can't happen to them. And I think that that's kind of right there, you're dropping your guard, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who've been handcuffed at the end of the day that had good intent, and somewhere along the line, you know, that good intent got twisted. And to me, you know, the book is not written for officers that are corrupt already coming in and going to be corrupt. That's the outcome. The book is about the process, you know, what it takes to turn somebody good and make them corrupt. So I thought that there was an area there that wasn't being done enough. And even in the academy, I mean, when I started having these dialogues on inmate manipulation on the Tier Talk channel, the videos going to 20, 30, 40,000 views. And I'm thinking, well, that's a thirst. Remember, guys, we're in a niche. You know, Tier Talk's it's a niche. So when you get 20, 30, 40,000 views within that niche, that means that knowledge is thirsty. People want that knowledge. So I thought what I could do is to just kind of share that knowledge. And for the people that don't want to invest money into an academy to have that class, then just give them the book. Or if you're smart enough, get the book on your own. But I definitely felt that there was a need for it. And then I went and crafted a book based on that need, which really got me to look into the game that's being played, which means, guys, that I myself had to admit that I am vulnerable and learn from those experiences by having the insight to kind of understand the conflicts that are happening, and then little journal. And I know Will did the same thing. Will, before Will comes on, Will knew that there's not a lot of care for our frontline professionals in regards to their mental health. He himself was vulnerable. He himself wrote a book based on his experience with mental health that's changing. One thing is the way we view it. It's okay to say there's a problem, you know, and then also for the agencies who are reading it from a higher level, what are you doing to help? So you know, Will, just on you know, just a little bit, the book yourself, the book that the great books that you have, When Home Becomes a Housing Unit and the Nothing That Never Happened. These are personal books for you, correct?
Yeah, correct. Originally, I set out to write a book just to become rich, but then I realized that that's not going to happen. So I said, no. I was kind of in a similar boat, right? I had an issue. I had a concern. I was in a dark place a little bit with the, you know, the daily grind and the concrete walls closed in on me. So when I attended this course, when I attended Katarina's course, Desert Waters, and I came back home, I said, you know, I got great information, but really nothing in my life is fixed. It's not changing yet. So I started journaling. I started writing, like, you know, what is my biggest problem today, or what's going on? And the very first article that I ever wrote, the very first piece, was called I Could Feel It. And it's about the anxiety that I felt on my Sunday night rolling into my Monday about this shit show that I was going to walk into, and kind of the unresolved issues and my fears and my insecurities and all of that, the unresolved trauma, all of that stuff made me extremely anxious. So I started writing it down, and I wrote it, and I said, hey, this is really good. And then I'm like, okay, now what are you going to do about it? Because when you have it right down in front of you, you're like, okay, so what now? How am I going to fix this? And so when I set out to write, I'm actually writing for myself first, because throughout the years I've learned that there's millions of me out there. There's officers that are struggling with these issues, and they don't know how to vocalize them. They don't know how to sit down and tell their wife or their husband or their neighbor that, hey, you know, this is why I behave the way that I behave, or, hey, I can't sleep at night because of that hanging victim I saw, or, you know what, some days I'm scared to go to work because I know what I'm walking into, because we have a certain inmate in my housing unit or something. So when I write, okay, my first priority is to put my passion, my problems on paper, so you can then share them, because correctional officers don't listen to anything, right? We can tell them, and they're like, oh, that's not me. That didn't affect me. You know, same with the manipulation thing. And you know, you sit down across from inmates that have been caught doing stuff, and they're like, I don't even know how this happened to me. What happened? Because you don't understand that you're a human being, and that you are vulnerable to manipulation, to psychological damage, because of the environment that we work in. And so what I try to do is provide examples to put you in my living room to say, you know what, that story, that chapter there sounds exactly like the fight that I had with my spouse a couple of nights ago. Or, hey, you know, this guy's talking about yelling at his kids, freaking out on his kids for not taking out the trash. Shit, I did that same thing a couple of nights ago too. Maybe it is the profession. Maybe it is some of the things that I that I have had to deal with, and maybe I should look into that. So that's why I began this writing journey, if you will.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something. Obviously, it's great that we actually find the time to invest in that vulnerability and become productive with it, because I'm working on a book right now that to me is actually therapeutic. You know, I'm sharing personal experience I never shared before, and I'm finding value in that. And then I feel that, you know what, that's something that should be shared, because now I also know my audience. You know, I know the people that watch the show, and I believe sometimes when I'm actually writing something, they're in the back of my mind. You know, even though I feel that, yeah, this is my journey, it's, you know, well, I'm being pushed to tell it because, you know, for some reason, there's someone in the back of my mind that wants to hear something. And, you know, it's just amazing to be able to write something and then to find out that, you know, you sold hundreds of copies across the nation. I mean, across the world. So there's somebody right now in Australia reading my book, somebody right now in the Netherlands, in the UK. And it just shows a lot, because these are just something that you're writing in the confines of your home. And then all of a sudden, I said confines. That's funny. The space where you're supposed to be the most free. And then, you know, someone is reading it across the world and really getting to know you on an intimate level, because it is an intimate level, because a lot of the stuff I write in that book, you know, I wrote by myself at 1 or 2 in the morning, you know, just alone with my thoughts and just trying to be, you know, what is it that I want to get out, and just going back and forth just to kind of make sure that it gets that thought. So I think we've established, you know, the motivation. The motivation is, you know, eventually we want to make sure that we write something that people can get value from. That's our meaningful contribution, right? And the great thing is that we have skill, passion, and that's the meaningful contribution, right? That's kind of what puts everything together. And this is what we're giving back. So the other part is, and we kind of touched on it during the intro, is what we want to leave behind. I love this profession. Obviously, I think everybody here loves it. We're on our own time right now. We're not getting paid for this. So we want to give back. And the reason why we love this profession is because we connected to the people. That I want people to know that first, that we connected to the people that brought about the love for this profession. So even when it comes to the legacy, I don't want to leave a me legacy behind. I want to leave a legacy that, you know, for me, for the inmate manipulation, that saves jobs, saves careers. I believe for William and William, save lives. For Gary, same thing, save careers. You know, same as mine. You know, so everybody has a motive, because with that said, it's something that we feel we could have an impact on. And that's based on our experiences where, you know what, I know I'm not the only one feeling this. That's how it starts. So I'm going to go ahead and share this story. And I know someone's going to come out and say what? Thank you. William, I got to pass this over to you real quick. You've gotten those thank yous. How powerful is it when you got that first one? You're muted, Will. I love it. Love it, man. You're muted, Will.
Son of a buck. I got my sign and everything.
Oh, man.
Listen, it puts tears in my eyes, man. I came to work. I had to work last night. I go into work. I'm looking at our mail. We have a wall of mailboxes. I look in the mailboxes, and in one of the mailboxes, I see my book in one of the lieutenant slots. And I pull it out, and I look, it's got, you know, his name in it or whatever. And I put it in there. And so I go find him, and I said, hey man, I said, thanks, man. I said, it's super cool to see my book in your slot, you know? And he said, well, let me tell you the story about the book. He goes, I loaned that book out about 4 months ago to an officer who was struggling with PTSD, suicidal ideation, a person that I thought wasn't going to be here today. But he returned the book to me a couple of days ago and said that, you know, thank you. And because of that book, he's going to continue to move on. And, you know, when you sit down, you know, Anthony, you talked about you're writing at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're pouring your heart out on the pages, and you're saying, geez, I just, if I can just get one person, if one person understands what I'm talking about, if I can just help motivate or let one person know that, hey, it's okay, and we can get through this, then it's all worth it, man. And I'll tell you what, I don't really, I mean, I feel like I don't deserve it. You know, I mean, I'm so humbled when somebody reaches out and says, hey, what you put on that paper, you know, changed my life for the better, man. It's freaking amazing, you know?
Yeah, and I know Gary, when I first met Gary York, guys, by the way, he was an author. I think he was the third person that was on my show when I did it for the radio for iHeart. And I'm pretty positive he was my third person, because my first was Gary Cornelius. My second was Keith Helwig. My third was Gary York. And what I did was, at the time, I was looking for authors. So I want you guys to know something too. When it comes to telling a story about this profession, when it comes to, you want to be out there doing the right thing, especially with the media, they look for authors. So if you feel that we're kind of being mistreated and that you know that we're better than this and you have the ability to write and tell a story, you got to do it, publish it. And it shows up when they're looking for somebody, especially if it's specific to that area, because that's how I found Gary Cornelius. That's how I found Keith Helwig. That's how I found Gary York. Gary York, I was a little nervous because he was an inspector. And at the time, I was just a CEO that hated internal affairs. I hated them, you know, no different than everybody else. But as you grow up and as you evolve, you know, obviously you see that there is an importance for them, because we don't want corruption in our facilities, and someone has to play the role and clean it out. But what helped me understand that is by connecting with someone who had passion. You know, Gary wasn't out to get cops to make a name. He was out to get cops to protect cops, if that makes any sense. You're a corrupt cop. You're no longer a cop anymore. I need you out. You know, and at that point, this is my job. This is what I'm passionate about. And I know some people, it's crazy because, you know, officers are doing something foolish and you see them out, you see them leave. How many of us ever thank the investigators for doing that? You know, so Gary's book opened my eyes to how deep corruption can be, but also, you know, risking it and going after people that could be your boss, again, to protect you on the front line. And that's where that inside the inner circle, the corruption behind bars. But Gary, I mean, your passion, I think, also was to kind of give a better understanding of what that job is as an investigator, and hopefully to build that respect that we're not out to get you guys. We're actually out to help you. Correct?
Yes. And, you know, I walked out of many of prisons here in Florida by myself with my briefcase, going back to my state vehicle, because a prison inspector job is pretty lonely. But I'm going to tell you, on the way out of a lot of those cases, I had a lot of officers come up to me and say, thank you. Thank you for taking away that person who was bringing drugs, bringing weapons into the prison. And I'm going to tell you, there's an old saying, no one hates a corrupt officer more than a good, honest officer. And that's the truth. That's what I found. And many of those officers who thank me are on my social media, Facebook today. This cap I'm wearing right now was sent to me from Maryland Department of Corrections officer, who said, I want to send you this. Thank you for what you do. I have patches and I have coins that have been sent to me from Canada, from Germany, from people, as you said, who are reading our books from other countries, who said, thank you for what you do, because I'm an honest officer and nothing bugs me more than a corrupt officer. So if people look at it that way, I think you'll understand more why we want you to educate and inform on what not to do, as well as what to do. I think both are very important. And you're right, Anthony. And I just want to say to anybody out there that has something that would help a correctional officer on what to do or what not to do, and you've wanted to write a book on it, it's not impossible. You know, it's very possible, and you can do it. And we're welcoming anyone to please write a book about something that will help correctional officers save their jobs and make themselves better in their jobs. And like William's book, you know, when a home becomes a housing unit, that will help you when you're in trouble and help you guide you on where to go and who to talk to. So I just wanted to get those things in there, and thank you all very much for all of you that are watching. I know there's a lot of you that watch my YouTube and Tear Talk YouTube that have bought my books. Anthony just held up my books. That's what made me laugh. I'm sorry. But anyway, Anthony, thank you for giving me some time to talk. Thank you.
But it's only fair, Gary, because you keep on showing ours. So here's Corruption Behind Bars, and here's Inside the Inner Circle. I knocked over a bunch of other books to get to these two. So not only did I invest in time getting the books, but just show how important Gary is, I'm going to invest in time in cleaning that up. Because that was, I just dropped the whole, I don't know, some other correctional books there. So guys, so real quick, again, we want to talk about a little bit about the journey. Now, guys, by the way, some people may not think that they're the best writers, and that's fine. Trust and believe that's fine. If you have a story to tell, don't let that stop you, because there's people that get paid to help you create a story. Not all of us are the best writers, and especially because I'll give you a little hint here. Sometimes we don't, when we tell a story, especially when we're writing it down, sometimes we lose track of our audience, and sometimes you need that other person to remind you, like, who are you writing to again? Because I know you want this book to get out to the public, but you're using a lot of professional jargon here that the public's not going to understand. So don't pull yourself back because you feel that you're not that good enough of a writer. It's not about that, guys. People get paid. They'll help you craft your story. They'll walk you through it. One other thing is you're not going to become a millionaire. I'll tell you that right now. So yeah, there it is. I broke William's heart. You're not going to become a millionaire, but that's not why you're writing the book. You're writing the book because you want a story to get out there, right? And then also, you want to have it to have some impact. So the funny thing is that story worth an investment? Not even just a personal investment of time, but the monetary investment. Do you feel that story is good enough to, have some type of meaningful contribution? And I'll tell you something, guys, even in the end, when you write a book, you never know how people can relate to it. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, can you come down and speak at this conference because your book really hit home? So again, guys, the meaningful investment of time and money really does balance the need to tell that story if you feel the story has that much value. Now, William, real quick, I'll go to you first. Is obviously your books are an investment of time. It costs money to invest. Now, I know we all joke, but in the end, you didn't write this book thinking I'm going to be a millionaire. You wrote the book with the mindset that I have a story to tell. What's the best way to do it? Correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing as if a singer songwriter is up on stage and they're singing somebody else's song. I mean, you can tell the passion, right? I'm telling my story, and I may not see a monetary kickback from this, but every day I get messages, I get emails, I get comments saying, hey man, you helped me. That piece of information, that chapter in that book, coworkers of mine that I have fought with, that I've cried with, that I rely on for my personal safety, them coming up and saying, hey man, I enjoy the book. Hey man, will you sign my book? I mean, for me, that is what's been the drive for me. The importance for me is to be able to help people, to be the face, to be the voice for people who can't vocalize what's going on with them inside. So, am I getting, money from this? A little bit, but that's not the point. The point is we're doing it. This is why I don't teach a class on tactical handcuffing, right? Because I don't care about that. There's somebody out there in this world that is very passionate about tactical handcuffing. That's the person you need to go for that. That's why Anthony's book on inmate manipulation is so good. That's why Gary's book is so good. It's because these things are coming from people who are passionate about the subject. We're just not writing to write, right? We're just not writing things that we're kind of half-ass involved in. We're putting our passion, our lives on those pages. So yeah.
And Gary, same thing, Gary. Was it worth for you the investment of time and money, even if you don't make the profit? Was the investment of time and money worth being part of that 3% who publishes a book?
When I have someone say, can I get some advice from you? And we all get that often. I know you do. I know William does. That really makes me feel good because they want to ask me, hey, I've got this situation at work. Now, how many times, Anthony, have you and I referred people to each other over a question of can I get some help on this? And I'll say, well, you know what? Anthony is better on that, or William Young is better on that topic. Let me refer you to them. And you've referred people to me with questions about an issue at work that may involve an investigation. Of course, I'm not going to get tangled in their investigation, but I'll give them advice. And then I hear that everything worked out and they're happy. And more or less, it was a peace of mind. I told them, well, you know, I can't hear about your situation, but this is what you need to do. Just stay calm and let the truth be the truth, and you're going to come out better. You know, something like that. I can't get involved in an ongoing investigation, but I can tell them, you know, stay calm, be honest, the truth will prevail, you know, things like that. Another thing is, when I get a gift like this cap or a patch or something like that, when I don't ask for it, if they just say, hey, I want to send this to you, that is the winning thing for me right there. It's not the money. Yeah, I make a little gas money for my truck every month, or I make a little money to buy me a book, you know, one of your guys' books. That's good enough for me. I didn't do this to get rich. You know, I get my pension from 28 and a half years in corrections, and that's what I'm living on. I'm not living off these books. They weren't written to become famous. They were written to help people. So yes, I'm happy about the little things that this book does.
Yeah, that's very powerful what you said. I wrote this book to just kind of make people happy, not to get rich. You know, I know people that are like, oh, I'm going to write this book and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the house we want. And guys, that's external. Now what happens is, believe it or not, the value of the book lessens, because when you don't get that house, you're going to think that your book has no value. How about you just go from the value of that, like Gary said or William said, when that first person puts that review up and says, this book meant this much to me. That's what the value is. That's what you internalize. Don't put anything else outside of that, but the feedback from your audience. And the funny thing is, guys, I spend more time looking for reviews on Amazon than I do purchases. You know, I know this may sound crazy, but I don't really track the purchases like I'm tracking my reviews on Amazon, because I want that feedback. One last thing before we come to a close, and I'll go to Will first and then Gary. It's just a little technical stuff. And again, I think we could have this for another discussion, but in case you do decide to go with the book, don't get me wrong, you guys could always reach out to us. We can tell you some more specifics on how we did it. We have no problem sharing that. But I'm going to give my own recommendation, and I don't know if they're the same as mine, but just to give you mine, I would recommend you self-publish because we write in a very secured niche. And when you go out to someone else to publish, they could take 75 to 80% of your book. And when you have a book that's only like $20, like every book that I sell that's $20, I only get $10 or $11 out of that. You know, a lot of it, you know, goes to taxes and whatever. So if I was to have someone else publish it, 80% of that goes to the publisher. I only get 20. That means I'll get like $2 or $3 on each book. So I would recommend, with the resources out there, really look into self-publishing. And if you get a good editor, they'll walk you through the whole route. They'll put a cover, they'll put everything, and then they'll post it up on Amazon. And then you just sit back and, you know, most work you'll have to do is sign copies. But Will, what's your thoughts on self-publishing or going to a publisher with that secured niche that we're in?
I think that if you want to try to reach out to a traditional publisher, that's fine. But in this day and age, self-publishing is easy. There's not a lot of money up front compared to, traditional publishing is nice. My first book was published by somebody else. They did all the work. I just wrote. My second book, The Nothing That Never Happened, I self-published, which was a big headache. It was a lot of work, but at the end of the day, I have complete control over whatever happens with that book. And I just, and like Anthony said, you pay money for the cover art, you pay good money for an editor, someone to help you lay out the book and stuff like that. That's where that expense is. You know, you have other people read it. There's all kinds of information out there on self-publishing. I probably will continue to self-publish just because at the end of it, it's been very rewarding. So yeah, I would recommend. Here's the thing I'll add. If you're sitting out there and you're listening to us and you're thinking, I think maybe I have a story, but I'm not really sure. Here's the deal. We need 1,000 voices out there. We need people telling their story, because you may be able to connect with somebody in a way that I can't connect with them. Your writing style, your experience, I mean, are you married? Are you not married? I mean, whatever it is, there may be people out there that want to listen to you that don't want to listen to me, or that'll take the information from you, but not from Anthony. You know what I mean? So start writing, start typing, get it out there in the world and see what happens.
I think that's great advice, Will. 100%, guys. Not everybody's for everybody. So it's great to be able to have a good amount of people to kind of address all those individualized needs. Hey, Gary, just real quick, your thoughts on, publishing or going out to a publisher or self-publishing?
My first 2 books, I paid a self-publishing company to take what I've written. I paid an editor who was a paralegal to edit, and then paid somebody for a cover, and then I sent it all to a self-publisher, and they published it up. And you know what? That was fine. But the next 2 books, I'm going a different route. I'm going self-publishing with Amazon. I'll still pay an editor to edit the book. I'll still pay somebody to do my cover, but I will upload it into Amazon self-publishing. They take 30% of the sale, and they give you 70% of the sale. So Corruption Behind Bars paperback is now $12.95. I'll get 70% of that. I did drop my books to 99 cents each on Kindle so that people could just pick it up easy and read it. And I get 70% of 99 cents. So you do it any way you want, and they allow you to set your price. When my books first came out, I did have the prices higher. Of course, they're 5 years old and 7 years old now. So I dropped my Kindle now to 99 cents permanently. It wasn't that way the first few years. I'm going to go next 2 books, do it myself with Amazon self-publishing.
Yeah, again, guys, just because it's your hard work and you don't want somebody taking 80% of your hard work. And one last thing, they don't even know how to advertise it to our audience. That's where our expertise is. Because again, when I wrote it, I knew what my audience was. Hey guys, just real quick, anything in closing? Will, you have anything you'd like to say about any up and coming authors?
Yeah, I do. I just want to say something to one person. It's 2 people. There's a buddy of mine in Michigan that has been toying with and talking about writing a book for about 1.5 years now. And he needs to stop whatever he's doing, and he needs to get on that keyboard and start writing that book. And then there's a female officer that I work with that every time I see her in the hall, she's a beautiful poet, right? And she keeps talking about wanting to put something together. And I want her to know that I'm going to continue to bother her every single day until I retire or she retires, or until I get that poetry book in my hand. You just need to go out and do it. Just put it out there. Whatever happens, happens. Who cares? That's what we do every day in a job when we walk into the unit, right? We have little control over what happens. We don't even know if the place is going to burn to the ground or not, but we do it. Fearless, right? So put it out there. Do it. You too. Do it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that William sends the link to this video so then we get a new subscriber. So you can show her the video and then give her the message, or else she's not going to hear your message if she doesn't watch the channel, Will. So, send her the damn link. Give me, I need that 1 subscriber. I'm 1 by 1 here.
Oh, whatever. Listen, I got pulled aside by a new officer the other day, and he's like, I recognize you, man. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm sure I see. He goes, no. He goes, I recognize you from Tier Talk. I'm like, oh, so you didn't recognize me walking around the halls for the last 3 months, but because you saw me in a Tier Talk video, okay, now I'm like a person. So I trust me, they're watching, Anthony. Okay.
I hope. And guys, COVID kind of hit us hard because we've been doing more conferences and stuff. So hopefully, maybe this year or next, we can go back out there and really interact. Because the key is meeting people and having that face to face. Hey, Gary, anything you'd like to say in closing for any upcoming authors?
Yes, as Connie Aileen said, in The Cage Was Her Cocoon. Folks, if you want to write a book, do not be scared to step out of that cage. Get out of that cocoon and blossom and get out of that cage, and you can write a book. You can do it, and we will help you. If you're watching this video, contact any one of the 3 of us. We will help you in any way we can. Don't be scared to get out of that cage.
I got to say something real quick, Gary. You came very prepared. I picture, like you have a duty belt on, and and just going and here's Connie with this, and then here, take some of Will's here, and oh, in case you get manipulated, here's Gangi's book, and don't do this shit. Read Corruption Behind Bars. I mean, that was very impressive, Gary. That was pretty damn impressive. It's like he was scripted based on the books that were in front of him. Well done, Gary. Those were there it is. Look at that. You know what I mean? I gotta go clean up a destroyed area just to get 2 books. All right, guys. So just real quick again, just piggyback what they said. You know what? You have a dream, do it. At the end of the day, the worst thing you could ever do in your life is to live with regret. Where all your dreams and your aspirations are looking at you on your deathbed, wondering what the hell did you do with us? You wasted us. And I don't want that for any one of you guys. So, as always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.